And eventually I could afford my own camera, and then so was going to get into more sort of stuff that was, you know, higher quality, higher resolution, and so on, and something that I could do actual jobs with. And so from this point on, I'm going to just talk about pictures that was taken of, like, involved pictures, people, because as Justin pointed out, we're a people business, and I guess it's more relevant here. But up to that point, I really didn't like my pictures that were of people. They just were kind of a bit crap. So I started looking at a lot of tutorials and you know, lighting setups on YouTube. And I found a lot of photographers talking about that, how you need to find your style, and this is how people are going to recognize you and hire you because you have a style. But eventually I find that there's a lot of pictures that they have a style, that they have very you know, like tangible sort of look, but there is nothing really behind them, and I can't see the person. I see it like a person, but I don't see the person in the picture. So I thought it's more important to have a voice, to have some kind of like a meaning behind the picture rather than just having a style. It sounded a little bit mechanistic to me in a way. And as Edward Stacken points out, the portrait is not made in the camera, but on either side of it. And this is a very important thing in taking pictures of people, that sort of genuine connection that you have with your subject. So this one was actually from the time before I had my own camera, and I managed to, for this one time, borrow one from a flatmate I had at the time. This is a very good friend of mine. He's a musician, and well, it's a great story behind it, but I don't think we have time now. But actually, this picture was taken in my kitchen, and just through the light, with the light that was coming through the kitchen window. It's the same one. We actually used this for this shot for an album, his album cover. These are shots of a guy who lived opposite, across the road, and I used to see him in the bus stop, and I was always thinking that, oh God, I really have to take a picture of this guy, but I just never knew how to approach him, and I just felt a bit awkward about it. But then one morning, as I was leaving the house, he was walking out his house as well. So we made eye contact, we made friends, and then eventually I brought it up, and then I managed to take his pictures. His name is Manrut. He's a fashion stylist, and he teaches at the London College of Fashion as well, and he's a motivational speaker. This is a very interesting character. And these are portraits of my mum. So I didn't want to take pictures of her as like portraits of my mother as such, but I wanted to take portraits of her as a professional. And she's an artist, and she's a university lecturer. So I wanted to sort of portray her in that sort of context. And actually the one on the left that was used for one of her catalogs that she did for one of her exhibitions. And these are portraits of my dad, which are a little bit more personal. So I just did the one on the left, I shot it in his garden one year, I think it was 2019, and the one on the right that was shot at my sister's wedding. They hired a limo, and then they had this really cool reflective ceiling. So I thought that was a sort of a cool shot. So this was this was my first paid portrait work that was specifically portraiture. And so basically, she wanted pictures that she could use for LinkedIn, but she could also upload on like a dating profile. So basically, this is what we have come up with. A portrait of my grandmother, and actually, this is quite like a bittersweet sort of story behind it, because this was not long after my granddad passed away, and she also lost her sister a few months before that. And she was going through a series of eye surgeries where something went wrong. And for like a few months, she had to wait between surgeries, and she couldn't really see anything apart from things that she had very close to her eyes. And so this was one evening I went back to Hungary in the summer, and we were playing cards in my dad's garden. So it's a very special memory to me, this one. And then so it's actually more difficult to find people to photograph unless that's your actual job and they don't come to you, because turns out people don't like their picture taken as much as I would think or I would like. So but luckily there are strangers on the street, so I go out still. I take a lot of pictures of basically everything. I don't specifically go out to take pictures of people, but then obviously there's a lot going on. So I really like to sort of capture human interaction, or sort of like moments with sort of a focus on like emotional, like sort of like kind of just emotions and that kind of stuff. So a lot of the time I manage to take a candid shot where they don't know, but then sometimes I get noticed, and then they look in the camera, look at me. And then sometimes it also happens that I just walk around and somebody just starts chatting to me, because apparently a camera does that. It's funny because nobody ever talks to anyone like a stranger on the street in London, but you know, it happened so many times just because I was taking pictures that people came up to me, and it's actually a really nice thing. So then I sometimes ask them if I can take their pictures as well. So yeah, this is a quote by Henri Cartier-Bresson that many consider as the father of street photography, and I guess this type of thing can be classed as street photography. So these guys were actually, this was near the O2 Arena. There is a kind of like a viewing platform. I don't really think it serves any other purpose. And I just loved their gowns, colors against that building in the background. So I started taking pictures, but I didn't even manage to take one. They noticed me straight away. And they were looking at me like, "Wow, what are you doing?" And I was just, "Oh, guys, I really love your outfits against the building." And then they were like, "Oh, can you take some pictures of us on our phones as well?" And then they just gave me their phones. So yeah, and then I managed to pause them a little bit as well. I said like, "Oh, could you all look in a slightly different direction?" And so this was the result of that time. This was in Fuerteventura. So I saw this guy poking around with this metal rod, and it was like, and I just looked at him like, obviously like with a puzzled face, and he just said pulpo, which means octopus in Spanish. So turns out he was hunting for octopus. This girl was sitting at the Nando's in Dalston. So I liked her sort of like her outfit and the her sort of jewelry and like her style. And I think she was reading a book or like looking at her phone. And as soon as I lifted the camera up, she looked in the camera, and I was like, "Damn, I got busted now." But she got a bit. I mean, she looks a little bit disapproving, but she was smiling afterwards. So it's like, yeah, that's all right. So this one was in Soho. I don't think he had any idea I was taking this picture. Columbia Road Flower Market. So this picture was taken one day before my first day at Luminous. So this was my first takeaway coffee after the first lockdown. This was in Canterbury. So this one is a shot that was taken in the Pride in 2013. And then this one was during the first lockdown in Broadstairs, where people couldn't even go to the park. So everyone had to make the most out of any sort of outside space they had, even if there was their driveway. And then this was like 2 minutes later, like a few doors down on the same street. He's a traveler, so I just started taking pictures of the boat. And then he came up to me, he was like, what are you taking pictures of? And I was like, yeah, I really like these sort of blankets and the cushions and these different textures. And then we started chatting, and he said that they're taking tourists up and down the canal, and they're playing music. And then I asked him if I could take his picture. He was actually quite shy, so he didn't actually keep his eyes open. And but I think it's like, it's just a really nice moment. And he said his name was Dimension.